Muhami Matters with Chris Adams, powered by CJA Consulting.
Now, what some companies do is they're big enough, and what they say is, we're open 7 days a week. You are able to trade with them between Friday evening and Sunday evening based on the closing exchange rate, plus a very big margin to cover them in case of market movements between Friday and Sunday. When you send 10,000 euros to your account in Spain, you pay for 10,000 euros, whatever the margin is, whatever the fees are. But when the funds get to Spain, they clearly see it's come from SWIFT outside of the European Union single market. Therefore, it's an international transaction, and the bank will nab 25 euros off it, and you'll only receive 9,975.
Welcome to Muhami Matters, where credibility meets clarity in legal and professional services. I'm your host, Chris Adams, founder of Muhami and CJA Consulting. Today on Muhami Matters, we're joined by someone who brings 4 decades of experience in global finance and foreign exchange. Tony Redondo has a remarkable background. He was born in Mozambique and raised between Africa and Europe, which really gave him a global perspective long before his banking career began. He spent his childhood nights under clear African skies, looking up at the stars with his godfather, which later inspired the name of his business, Cosmos Currency Exchange. Tony began his professional life in the City of London in the days before email and online banking, at a time when bank managers genuinely knew their clients and relationships really sat at the heart of finance. That early grounding has shaped the philosophy he now brings to foreign exchange, and we're going to explore a lot more about all of the above today. Particularly, we're going to look at the most common ways that SMEs lose money on international payments and the blind spots in banking and automated platforms, and how Tony's belief of a more personal approach to FX can really add genuine value to a business. Tony, I hope I haven't stolen all your thunder. Welcome to Muhami Matters. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much for the invite, Chris.
So for those meeting you for the first time, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you've come from, your life history, and, not too long, and what Cosmos Currency Exchange does on a daily basis.
So, as you said, I was lucky enough to have a very, very idyllic early childhood, growing up in Mozambique in southern Africa, 200 yards away from the Indian Ocean, where the water temperature is 23 degrees and the air temperature is 26 degrees year-round. So for about 10 months of the year, it's hot, warm, dry, and sunny. And for the following 2 months, it's still hot, warm, dry, and sunny, other than about 2 hours in the afternoon where you got the monsoon rains. And you have to experience warm rain to understand exactly what I'm talking about. Only somebody who's been in that part of the world in that season knows what it's like to have genuinely warm water rain. So I had a fantastic childhood. We lived 200 yards away from the Indian Ocean, so going to the beach was an everyday event. So my fondest memories are of the holidays where we went inland, where on the border between Mozambique into South Africa, there's Kruger National Park, one of the famous national parks in South Africa, where, tourists go to see the big 5 around the watering holes, and that was fantastic. But my abiding memory was under the no light pollution, dark African skies, when, because of the tilt of the Earth, the southern hemisphere points towards the middle of the Milky Way, and we in the north here in the UK point away from the Milky Way. So no light pollution pointing towards the middle of the Milky Way is just a canopy of stars. And luckily for me, my godfather was a very keen amateur astronomist, and would hold my hand and draw out the constellations in the sky, and point out the asteroid belt, or where Venus and Mars was, and everything else. So I've had an abiding interest in all things up there ever since.
Well, what took you from the clear, beautiful, warm rain in Mozambique and the clear skies to the possibly not so clear skies of the UK? Still pleasant, but, probably not as clear.
Absolutely. Life, basically. So in 1974, there was a revolution in Portugal, which overthrew a 50-year fascist dictatorship. And overnight, Portugal had built up a series of colonies from the 15th century discoveries in Africa, in Asia, in the Far East, in South America, with Brazil, and the colonies were given away overnight. And so we were basically evacuated out. My parents lost everything because we literally had 24 hours to pack 2 suitcases and get out. Went back to Portugal for 10 months, but Portugal is a small country. You know, there's nearly as many people in London as there is in the whole of the country of Portugal. And people were coming back from Mozambique, from Angola, from Cape Verde, from Goa in India, from Timor, Indonesia, from Macau in China. So country couldn't cope. It was pretty chaotic. And my parents tried to settle down. Wasn't working out. So they went off to 3 embassies, the British, the Canadian, and the Australian embassies. And the first visa to come through was the British. So in January 1975, we arrived at Heathrow Airport in London without a word of English between us.
Wow.
And to go from African and Portuguese heat to a British winter in January was interesting. Very interesting.
How do you say unpleasant in Portuguese?
Absolutely, yeah. It was just incredible, you know. I mean, but for a child, it was still fantastic. You know, I still remember to this day the ride in a car to North London from Heathrow. I'd never seen so many buildings in my life. I'd never seen so many cars in my life. Never seen snow until that first winter. We had a tremendously hot summer in 1976, a very dry summer in the UK. But for me, it's a lot more humid in the UK than it was in Africa. And I'm still wearing a jumper when everybody else was in t-shirts, shorts, and and flip-flops. So, but we settled in, and for a child, life goes on, and we quickly got on, and I ended up having a really good time in London eventually, and started my career in the City of London in '85.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that career briefly. How did you kind of get from the City of London through to where you are now?
Right place at the right time, in all honesty. So before 1985, the City of London was a closed shop. You had to be invited in. You had to go to the right schools, know the right people. Well, I grew up in a council estate in the East End of London, so I most definitely did not go to the right schools or know the right people. But in '85, the second Thatcher government liberalised financial services, what was then called by the media Big Bang in the City of London, and all the international banks flooded in, and that gave opportunities for people like me who are quite numerate. So that was my decision. I joined Barclays Bank, spent 3 years there doing the grounding, if you like, far from the bottom up. Got very lucky again with one of my first bosses, who became a bit of a mentor, good old Henry, who encouraged me to study. So he gave me a day release for 2 years to go to college. And then I studied 3 nights a week for 3 years to get my associateship of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, which is the professional qualification in banking to this day. And that opened up career opportunities. I then joined a small trust company specializing in property finance. That grew very quickly, got bought out twice. And again, I fell into foreign exchange through my clients, who tended to be jobbing builders with a little bit of ambition. We're in that classic chicken and egg situation as far as the banks were concerned, in that they would go for finance from the bank because they wanted to start up their own projects. The bank would reject them for lack of experience. But how can you get experience if you don't get a start?
Yeah.
So they went to a specialist lender like I worked for. Those were successful, quickly got into, better housing, better badged cars. Kids started going to private school. And then inevitably, discussion was around their dinner table about, wouldn't it be nice if we had a holiday home abroad? And luckily for me, Portugal and Britain are the oldest political alliance in the world. And I'm bilingual, obviously. And so anybody who wanted to go to the Algarve for the golf, or Lisbon for the culture and city tours, or Porto for the wine tours. Anybody interested in a holiday home over there, I had the contacts, I had the language skills, I could help them. So when it came to buying the property, by the end of it, I was so involved that they would simply say to me, well, we've been involved with everything else. Now we need to buy these things called escudos, because it was pre-Euro. Euro wasn't around at the time. So I had a theoretical knowledge from my studies and merchant banking years, but started focusing more and more on foreign exchange until it became my full-time job.
Wonderful. So yeah, you've really gone from being, a big man about town and in the square mile, pretty serious high-level banking, and you've broken off and created your own exchange house, which is, quite a big change of scenery. What really, you've alluded to it, but what really prompted you to do that?
We moved to Cornwall in 2006, and so I've been lucky enough to live in a beautiful part of the UK for the last 19 years. And my CV allowed me to work remotely with City of London-owned businesses. And during that time, Chris, I saw the financial system being completely overtaken by technology. So I started in the days before computers, before the internet, before email, before credit scoring, when bank managers were bank managers. And then technology started coming in, and now it completely dominates it. And like most things in life, there's lots of good things that have come with technology, but there's a flip side as well. The good things that come with technology is it's sped everything up.
Mm.
It sounds ridiculous now, but I come from the days when I started where if you wanted to invoice me, you dictate something for your secretary to type out, put in an envelope with a stamp, post it to me. I would get it 4 or 5 days later, open it up, read it, write a check out, post it back to you. That's another 5 days. You then get it and give it to your accounts team to go to the bank and deposit the check and wait 5 days for it to clear. Now, you just message me. I go on my mobile phone, tap away, and 20 seconds later, the funds are there.
Yeah.
So it's been fantastic for speed. It's been fantastic for the client because it's brought a lot of new entrants in. Again, when I first started, there were 4 big banks, which accounted for like 95% market share in the UK.
Wow.
Now, there's over 650 banks registered in Square Mile, and all those banks have less than a 50% market share.
Mm.
So clients have got tremendous choice. But the flip side is this. They've got lots of choice of numbers. But what the situation we've got now is whether the client uses the bank or an online broker or one of the numerous payments apps, they all share one thing in common. It's a one-size-fits-all platform where the client is a data entry that has to self-service. And in my long years, that sometimes causes issues. One, because currency exchange rates change every 3 seconds, night and day. So trying to get the right timing when you are busy running your own business or doing a full-time job is pretty difficult, if not to say impossible in reality. And two, we're all using the UK to the British banking system with sort code and account number as the key matrices. But it's the only country in the world that uses sort code and account number. You start dealing with the United States and you've got a routing number and a SWIFT number and an account number. You deal with Europe, you've got an IBAN and a BIC code. And these systems, because they're reactive, you put all, you're self-servicing. So you say, I want to sell X currency and buy Y currency. You get a reactive exchange rate quote. You accept it or you don't accept it. But there's no discussion about, do you need to do it straight away? What's your time frame? What's your attitude to risk? What's your cash flow like? Like in the old days when I started, you'd be discussing those kind of things with the bank manager. Here, you just got a rate, and you've got 10 seconds to accept that rate in isolation or not accept the rate.
Mm.
And then you start putting the coordinates on the invoice, and if it works, it's fantastic. But if it doesn't work, if it disappears into the ether, and 3 days later you get a not so nice telephone call from your supplier saying, Chris, I thought you were going to pay me. Where's my money? But it's gone out of my account 3 days ago, you say. And he goes, but it's not here. You then go back on the platform, and some of these platforms don't even have a telephone number.
Yeah.
So where on earth do you start trying to trace where the money is in the banking system? It can be, like all technology, when it works, it's fantastic. But when it doesn't, there's got to be a plan B for clients. There's got to be a safety net. And to me, the only safety net, again, technology in years to come with AI and robots might provide a new, clever, technology-based safety net or plan B. But right now, the way I see it, the only sensible option for a plan B safety net is to talk to a human being who's experienced in these things, where you, the client, can say, I need to make this payment by the end of the month. I'm going to be funding it from this currency. I need to buy this currency. I'm tight for cash flow. I'm worried about the exchange rate. Can you be my eyes and ears in the market? Where do I start? What do I do? What documentation do you need? And let somebody guide you through the process. Because business people, whether you're running your own business or you're in a job where you're making international payments or indeed receiving funds from overseas clients, there are so many things that you've got to do that parking this crucial little bit to somebody whose only job in life is to do the foreign exchange payment for clients, to focus on that market, to guide you through the process, some clients might find quite useful.
I definitely think it's a very useful service. So I've had some dealings with you recently because I've had some very bad experiences. Now I run a small SME, and I now have to sometimes receive funds from overseas clients, or send to suppliers overseas as well. And I've tried multiple different methods, and I have not got a clue what's going on. It's just so anti-intuitive. What's the opposite of intuitive? Counterintuitive. That's the word I'm looking for. It's so counterintuitive. And issues I've run into, which I think can be alleviated by dealing with someone, is hidden costs. So I've made transfers. I try it through my bank, and all of a sudden discovered that that amount that's been transferred has been $50 short or $25 short through no thing I haven't done. There's nothing on when you're sending it through your bank to say you need to hop it up. You need to transfer that little bit extra, and how much that little bit extra is. And then there's fees that are in there that your own bank charges you. The recipient gets charged. They get angry at you because you haven't paid them in full, and your bank's angry because you owe them money. It's horrible. And then I guess other things is currencies. So I in my head I thought, okay, I need to put dirhams into dollars, and then dollars and send it into pounds. Should be simple, right? But no, I need a dirham account to send my dirhams into, to then convert it into a dollar account. So I need a dollar account, and then I need to be able to convert it into pounds to send it in pounds, or I lose a lot of money by sending it from dollars to pounds. And again, the hidden fees. It is just very, very challenging. So I think there's a lot of benefits that you bring. So what are some of the most common mistakes that SMEs like me probably and other professionals make when sending and receiving overseas payments?
I think the two common mistakes that we see time and time again are for the established businesses, where they would have started out years ago, business has grown. They usually started out in those days with a relationship with a clearing bank, and they're still with a clearing bank. And the issue there is banks have big overheads.
Yeah.
And like all businesses, they've got to take the money in to cover those overheads, plus a little bit more to pay their shareholders a dividend and pay their staff and pay their taxes and be a viable business. The only way they can do that is by charging clients. So sometimes you see, we often see, whether it's British banks or European or American banks, they've all got the same business model, huge overheads. They've got to recoup it through fees, charges, and This is the bit that they don't tell you about, and is very difficult to work out for most clients, the margin on the exchange rate transfer. It's very easy to do things that make life quite complicated for clients, like inverting the currency exchange rate. So most British people, if they're buying dollars, they understand 130. They understand if it falls to 125, oh, that's bad for me. If it goes up to 135, that's great. I can buy more dollars with my money. But all of a sudden, they go on these, they're on a bank platform or they're on an app, and the rate isn't 130, but 0.87. What on earth is 0.87? What does that mean?
Wait, I'm going to interrupt you. Sorry, Tony. I thought it was just me who had that issue, because buy versus sell when currencies is actually very confusing for a layperson because getting it the right way around is actually difficult.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of these platforms are designed to be that way. Sometimes because the development was done overseas, so the base currency isn't sterling for British clients. It's a European company that's designed the software, or an American company. So that automatically means the system has got €1 equals so many pence, or $1 equals so many pence. Or sometimes it's done by design. So established businesses can be leaving easily. British businesses, if you're using a bank for your foreign exchange transactions, you'd be easily leaving 2 to 3% on the table. Very easily. If you're an American business dealing with the big 5 American banks, you'd be easily leaving 5% on the table. Easily.
Wow.
Very, very easy. Which is why an app like Stripe, forgive me if I'm not supposed to advertise
Go for it.
the businesses, but a very well-known, huge company. Stripe are a relatively new entrant into the market, doing remarkably well in the North American market. Why? Because they only charge 3.5% margin compared to the bank's 5 or 7, or the ridiculous margins that the Western Unions and the PayPals charge.
And they're transparent about it.
They're very transparent about it because it's a selling point for them. Great, we're much cheaper than the banks, and they are, to be fair to them. But here's the thing. In the foreign exchange market, London is the biggest foreign exchange market in the world. It's bigger than New York. It's the only financial market where London is bigger than New York or Frankfurt or Shanghai or anybody else. It is the center of the world. And as somebody who worked in the City of London for 17 years and now still does the majority of his work via the City of London, I haven't been able to charge 3.5% as clients for 20 years because the British market is just too competitive. So if you're an American business, using Stripe is much more sensible than using the banks. But why stop there? There are still better options out there.
Okay, so I think you're probably going to, I get a sense you're going to tell us something, Tony, some deep dive secrets. Just before we move on to that then, so what about safety? Many people assume that the bank is the safest option. They're well established.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for years. They, do it hundreds and tens of thousands of transactions day in, day out. Why is that an expensive assumption?
Yeah, really, really good question. Most important question the client needs to ask, whether, regardless of the client's circumstances, whether they're an individual, whether they're working in a charity, the third sector, or in a business. Is my money safe? Has to be the first question that client has to ask, in my opinion. And if you're not sure about the answer or the quality of the answer, there's no need to carry on the conversation. Stop there. There's something that spooks you, stop there. Because you've got lots of choices. The world is not short of currency payment solutions. There are hundreds of online brokers, payment apps, banks, and the odd business. Cosmos is not unique in our human-led approach. It's wrong, but it's not unique. So clients, you've got lots and lots of choices. Security. It's an expensive assumption that, the bank is safe. And I totally understand why a lot of clients think that way. Because everybody's heard of Barclays Bank. Everybody's heard of Chase Manhattan or JP Morgan or Santander. Cosmos Currency Exchange, who on earth are they? I get it. I completely get it. But here's the thing. It's quite easy to do the research these days. Obviously businesses have got websites. You've got the FCA website. You've got regulators' websites. You can do a lot of research from any device, or whether you don't even need a PC. You can do it from your mobile phone quite easily and find out, how is my money secure? Perversely, the answer is completely counterintuitively.
Really?
And what I mean by that is this. So, Chris, you think, well, I've never heard of Cosmos, so I'm going to use the bank. And I'm going to use a British bank because everybody's heard of Barclays, big bank, they're safe. I'm not picking on Barclays, but they're a very good example. But the issue is, until this morning, if Barclays goes bust, you are only covered in a personal bank account, not a corporate, but in a personal bank account for £85,000. Now, anything after that, you're in the queue behind the taxman and the VAT man and everybody else. This morning we've had news that 85,000 limit has been increased to 120,000. Fantastic. But again, that's not the full story, because whether it's 85 or 120,000, first of all, it doesn't include business accounts. That's only for personal current accounts, qualifying personal current accounts to be exact. Secondly, it's 170,000 or now 240,000 for a joint account. Absolutely right. But if you exceed that amount, so if you and your partner have a joint account, you're covered now for £240,000. But here's what the banks don't tell you. Let's say you've got £200,000 with Lloyds Bank and £200,000 with the Halifax. You are not covered for 400,000. You are covered for 200,000 because Lloyds own Halifax and therefore share the same banking license. It's the same with NatWest and Royal Bank of Scotland. So you need to be careful with that. You don't have any of those issues with a business like Cosmos because we are not a bank. We're not governed by the Prudential Regulation Authority in the Bank of England. We're governed by the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, which says if you want to be an authorized institution, you have to hold all client funds, regardless of amount or currency denomination, in segregated clients' accounts. So at all stages of a client fund's movements with us, both on the way in and on the way out, client funds never touch our office accounts. They legally have to be held in protected clients' accounts so that you register, Chris, you're buying a holiday home in Florida. You register, you send me your dirhams or your sterling or whatever for me to buy dollars to pay for the holiday home in Miami, for argument's sake. And Cosmos goes bust. Something goes wrong with the business. Happens. Touch wood, it hasn't happened in 5.5 years.
Not good, I would. Yes.
Here's the thing. Your funds are safe. Because if Cosmos goes bust, our creditors can only get to our funds in our office account. They'll touch your funds because they never touch our office account.
Makes sense.
So it doesn't matter how much money you've got with us, in whatever currency. I've regularly hold millions of pounds, dollars, euros, Swiss francs, Swedish krona, off the top of my head, for clients who are doing both business and personal clients doing various transactions. We regularly hold millions in whatever the currency is, and the funds are 100% safe because even in the worst case scenario that Cosmos goes bust, the funds are safeguarded in protected clients' accounts.
So who do we go to in that situation if Cosmos, God forbid, went under? Do we go to someone like the FCA or someone like that, or how do we get that money back? Yeah,
you go to the FCA, and the FCA will put you in touch with the administrators who are, sorting out the winding up of Cosmos, and somebody will pick up the telephone and say, "Chris, Mr. Adams, bad news, I'm afraid. Cosmos has gone bust. However, your funds are safeguarded. I can either return the funds to you so you can make alternative arrangements, or we have got a facility to actually do the conversion for you." So you get given a choice in your own time frame to either return the funds and make alternative arrangements or go through the process with the administrators. That's the law.
Well, let's just make sure we don't accidentally clip Cosmos has gone bust. Cosmos has not gone bust, just to clarify. But it could happen. It could happen to any company, right? It could happen to any exchange house or a bank or any sort of financial institution or any company, I guess. So understood on the bank versus a more boutique FCA accredited or protected company like Cosmos. So what are the red flags, and I guess in opposite the green flags, I guess, that we should be looking at? What are the good things we should be looking for to tick box exercise to say this is a good exchange now, this is a good way to send my money, it's safe? And what are some of the red flags we should also be aware of where we say no, definitely don't want to use them?
Clients have got so much choice, Chris, that at the end of the day, Cosmos is not going to appeal to everybody. We don't want to appeal to everybody. I often say to clients, I can help you, but actually looking at what you're doing, a recent example, a business that has grown very quickly over the last decade or so, and has now got a big payroll run today in multiple currencies globally. Got introduced to me by their accountants, and I had various discussions with the finance director, and to get to the bottom of exactly what they're looking for. And what they were looking for is two things, really. One is the monthly payroll run, which they're currently using the bank, has to be manually uploaded, which they have to employ staff. It has to be double-checked. Mistakes inevitably happen in copying and pasting, and it's a quite manual, labor-intensive process. It takes time. The overheads now, particularly with employers' national insurance contributions having gone up from the last budget, it's a very old-school process, but it's what they've grown up with since day one, and they're using the bank. And the second thing is, because everybody's online these days, they've seen an explosion in overseas orders. They also have multiple overseas suppliers. So after various discussions with the FD, I said to the FD, look, this is going to sound pretty crazy because I'm actually going to suggest that for the payroll, you use somebody else. Not because I can't do it, because I can do the whole lot for you. But here's the thing. My systems, the only benefit of us running the payroll is rather than your staff inputting everything manually, we would input everything manually for you. But it's still manual. When there are brokers out there who have these platforms where you can just upload a CSV file, press a button, zing, done.
Yeah.
Everything's taken care automatically. Because each amount is quite small, therefore the exchange rate differential doesn't really make a difference on $1,500 and 1,400 euros and 800 Swiss francs or whatever it is. It's minimal, the difference in the exchange rate, but the convenience of uploading a CSV file and pressing a button and that's your payment roll taken care of, I can't beat. I can't match. I can take the manual hassle off you, but the solution is not as neat, to my mind, as uploading a CSV file. Because the way I look at it is, if I was the FD, yes, it's great that somebody else is going to take the manual work off me. If they're the only two choices, we carry on with the manual work or hand it off to somebody else. Of course, handing it off is better. But actually, that is not the only two options. There's this third option, and there are lots of online platforms and apps that specialize in payroll runs. They've got the technology. They make life as simple as possible for you, save you the overheads, make it faster, quicker, easier. And the downsides, the red flags, as you call them, because each amount is relatively small, doesn't really make a difference on the exchange rate. Where Cosmos can help is on the other side of their foreign exchange requirement, when they're making multiple payments, sometimes months ahead, because they're buying capital equipment in where they need a 10% down payment and 20% or 30% of construction or whatever the payment schedule is. exchange rates are changing every 3 seconds, night and day. 28,800 changes every 24 hours. And that finance director has to sit there thinking, I've got a dollar payment to make in February 26. Do I buy now? Do I wait? That's where we can come in. Because we can have a discussion and we can lay out, look, this is the situation, short term, what's your cash flow like? And because the discussion opens up the game, because we start asking questions like, okay, the pound is, has lost 4% in the last year. So it's not in a good place. We were just over a week away from the budget. It could get a lot worse. But with rates changing every 3 seconds, lots of more, and you haven't got a payment to make until February, is it sensible to tie up all your capital and buy, $2 million right now, and your capital is tied up for 4 months? Maybe there's a better solution. Maybe what we could do is hedge our bets and do half by 2 million of your 4 million, but on a forward contract, so that you lock in today's rate to protect your downside. But with a forward contract, I only need a 10% deposit. So you keep 90% of your capital for your projects and your working cash flow. Try having that discussion on an online app.
Yeah.
Or to a bank call center.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you.
So there's the clients these days, Chris, have got so much choice that there is always an optimum range of choices for each kind of situation. Cosmos was not set up to be the answer to everybody's problems. It was set up to say to clients, if you either like the personal touch or need the personal touch because you've got a complex situation, or you feel it's a complex situation, it's complex for the client, or it genuinely is complex because of the countries involved. There might be high-risk destinations from a compliance point of view. All of a sudden, using a payment hack, forget it.
Yeah.
They might advertise that they do the currency, but try sending it. Just won't get through. You just won't, because of compliance point of view. So you'll get snarled up, and then the funds are rejected, and they're returned to you 2 weeks later, and everybody's up in arms, and everybody's lost time and money. It's not a good way, an efficient way of dealing with these things. So any complex situations, that's what we set up from. Anything that requires that human touch of having a discussion and finding out about you, Chris. You're not then a data point. Well, Chris is selling pounds and buying dollars. Yeah, we got 150,000 clients like that. No, we haven't. We got 150,000 individuals, each with their own attitude to risk, each with their own cash flow, each with their own time frame. And one day, I'm pretty sure, or so I'm told, by people a lot younger and cleverer than me, the technology will get there and it'll solve everything through robotics and AI and everything else. And maybe that's right. But we're not there yet. So in the meantime, come to good old Tony and his team, who can have a chat with you, find out about what's important to you, and try and lay out very clearly, these are the red flags, this is how we can cover them, or these are the red flags, we can cover these, but actually there are better solutions for those. We can do them, but there are better solutions for those. And the reason we're so open about it is that it is not through anything else other than sheer, cold business logic. All our business from day one has come from word-of-mouth referrals. It doesn't take too much to work out what happens to those referrals or to the repeat business if you don't truly have the client's interests at heart.
So what I'm hearing from you, Tony, I think, is that transparency is the number one thing that people should be looking for, depending on their circumstances. Well, first of all, my understanding is you're saying there's no, set of red flags or red set of, or other set of tick boxes. It depends on your personal situation, and really knowing your personal situation. If you're not that well informed, then probably a big benefit is finding someone like Cosmos who can actually help you through the process. And if not,
Absolutely.
then we'll give you honest feedback on who else you should be going to. But certainly the accreditation is important. One thing I've noticed here from the UAE, for example, is that we don't have access to some of the larger international platforms that you get in the UK and US. So you think, okay, I'm going to make a transfer via Wise or Payoneer or one of these other ones that, do this day in, day out, but we can't access it here. It's not even an option. The website comes up, but it's all on the waiting list. So that is when I think we need to do our research and say, well, okay, where else do we go? And for me, that's where you think, well, if I don't know Tony Redondo, then what do I do? I've only really got the bank, or what am I actually looking for then? I know that someone as naive as I will, not uneducated about it, you don't know what you're looking for. So I could definitely see how you solve that problem. Where are the hidden costs usually then? Because transparency is not a key factor, or a key strength, I should say, of most FX houses. So where do the hidden costs really usually appear? And why are they so difficult for us SMEs to spot?
Really good question. And you're absolutely right. And in fact, it's endemic in the whole financial industry, is not famous for its transparency. In all finance fields, sadly, but that is the truth of the matter. What to look for is the two things, really. When it comes to foreign exchange, the margin that people charge, because the rates you see online are not actual trading rates. You might see pound dollar at 131, but even if you were a hedge fund in the City of London buying $10 million, you would not get 131. Because think about it logically. If you were able to buy at 131, how does the seller make any profit?
Mm.
And if the seller doesn't make profit, it's not going to be around for very long.
It's not a business. Yeah, exactly.
But there's got to be a margin.
Where do we find that margin? And that's what I think I've always struggled with. Where do you actually find that margin? Is it visible?
In the old days, you'd be across the table from your bank manager, who would call up, his foreign exchange desk in head office and go, "Hello, I'm the bank manager at such and such a branch. I've got a client in front of me wanting to buy $150,000. What rate can we do for him?" Because that was the way things were done. Nowadays, it's even more opaque, because what you see, so you're in front of your PC and you've got two screens. And on the first screen, you've gone online and you've asked AI, or you've asked Google, Mr. Google, what the exchange rate is between pound and dollar. And what they all quote is the headline rate, 131.
Mm.
You think, great. You then go on your app or on your bank platform and it says 127. And you go, hold on. But the real problem isn't even the 4-cent margin. The real problem is, because it's a reactive platform, there's no perspective. There's no background. Okay, so I'm getting 127. So somebody's taking 4 cents. But okay, they're going to make money. They've got to cover their costs. They're going to make a profit. Fair enough. But is 4 cents a good margin? Bad margin? You're not in front of a human being to discuss that. You've no idea. And you're busy. You've got a million things to do. So most people just press the button because it is what it is. When you're dealing with small amounts, yeah, okay, it's not really a problem. It might make a difference of a couple of euros or a couple of dollars. But as soon as you start going above sort of 10, 20,000 pounds worth, all of a sudden 4% margin compared to a 2% margin compared to a 1% margin, and you're doing your monthly as an SME, makes a huge difference to your bottom line.
Mm.
So, again, Cosmos is not unique in having a human-led approach. There are lots of online brokers that have human teams. But one of the things that I always say to my clients to keep an eye out for, in all spheres, not just with foreign exchange, is, and again, it's not something that perhaps might jump to people's thinking, is where does that business get their business from? And what I mean by that is most of my competitors, for example, get their business through pay-per-click business models.
Right.
That costs money.
Of course.
Again, how is it covered? Through the margin. And it makes that business model very transactional by definition. Now, they might have a very nice website that talks about personal service and, ring our team in London or Singapore or wherever they are. But if they're getting their business, the majority of their business through pay-per-click, it's a transactional business. They might have a human touch to it, but it's a transactional business model.
Yeah.
If you find a business, whether it's in foreign exchange or in merchant banking or invoice discounting or whatever you're involved with, that gets all their business from word of mouth referrals, again, there's still a business. They still need to cover their costs. They still need to make a profit. But now the goalposts are completely different. Because now the focus is, if Chris introduces me to John and I play games and take 4% off John, I might get away with it once. I might get away with it for years. But there's so much information out there. At some point, John is going to go, I see pound dollar on my mobile phone at 131 and Tony's charging me 127.
Yeah.
Is that right? It might be right, it might not. But it will start encouraging the client to look around. And when he does, he's going to go elsewhere. He's going to have a go at you for introducing you to me. I then lose you as a client, lose him as a client, and lose the opportunity of you referring who else you know. For a business that's 100% dependent on word-of-mouth referrals, that is an unmitigated disaster.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. For someone in PR and comms, I can tell you it is. It's very, very hard to come back from.
So we're not going to do it. Not because we don't want to take margin or because, we're not a charity. We're a business. We have to cover our costs. But actually, you don't need to take 4% margins to cover costs. You just don't. And again, one of the benefits of Cosmos is we don't have London overheads. We're based in Cornwall.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had an experience myself the other day where I did have a relationship manager to deal with for an online platform. I thought, okay, I'll use this one to make an international transfer. And they gave me the rate and I was like, okay, I understand. It's all quite transparent. And then I made the transfer and it was 52 dirham short because lo and behold, there is a fee that no one told me about. And of course I was like, well, why hasn't it gone through? Like, what's going on? And then, 2 days later you get contact and say, you owe 52 dirhams, Mr. Chris. I'm like, well, why? Why am I being charged this? Like, oh, that's the transaction fee. Well, why is this not on the screen? What I make, what I'm actually doing the transaction. It's horror. And yeah, they're not getting my business, and I'm definitely not recommending it to anybody else because it takes quite a long time to get everything set up in the first place. And maybe we'll come to compliance in a minute. Actually, the pain that is for a business, but yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from as far as word of mouth and veracity and the importance of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an important thing to ask for clients.
Let's talk about compliance then, because that is, I set up my account with Cosmos Personal and Business, relatively pain-free, but it did take a week or so, and which, by the way, is no longer than any other platform that I've set up with. So there are compliance requirements, and I guess that's a good sign. It is one of those good things that people should be looking at.
Exactly.
If something's instantaneous, then how could the due diligence, the KYC, have been done properly? So tell us a little bit about compliance requirements, I guess, and the reason for them, what you're obliged to do, and then how we can kind of speed those up as much as possible, how we can make it as easy as possible.
Sure. Really good question. So compliance is quite onerous, in all honesty, but that's good. Again, for exactly the same reasons I said earlier, that the first question any client should ask when discussing any kind of financial transaction with anybody is my money safe? And if you don't like the answer to that, don't carry on the conversation.
No.
There's no point. Move on. You've got lots of choices. No business is unique out there. There is choices everywhere in every sphere of financial services. Compliance is quite simple in terms of the framework. You've got 4 categorizations. You've got low risk, which is mainly UK, Europe, Scandinavia, North America, Australasia. You've got medium risk, which is like Central Europe, some parts of Southeast Asia, some parts of South America, Central America. High risk, a lot of countries in Africa, for example, are high risk. And then you've got the sanctioned countries, which have been sanctioned by the United Nations and various bodies. They are Iran's, Iraq's, Afghanistan's, North Korea's, Russia's, Cuba's, Somalia's, Libya's, those kind of countries. Very simple. Sanctioned countries, you're not legally allowed to move funds in and out of in any currency. So you can't send money there in any currency. You can't receive money from it. So that's simple. Then it's a question of whether it's high, medium, or low risk. The higher the risk, the more paperwork is required. So, for example, if I have a client registering from Dubai, I can't run full electronic checks, so we will need documents. Usually a proof of ID, proof of address, source of funds documents, reason for trade documents. That's standard. But same client with exactly the same requirement based in, say, South Africa, I still need documents, but now they need to be certified. Why? Because South Africa is designated a higher risk than Dubai is. That's the rules. And you're absolutely right. You know, I would love to turn around every compliance or every registration application within 24 hours. That's like a holy grail in terms of the onboarding of clients. Is it possible? Absolutely. If you are based in Britain, if you're based in the UK, and you've lived at the same address for over 3 years, and you're on the electoral roll, chances are we'll go through electronically. We'll open the account the same day as your registration. If you've moved about a lot, you're not on the electoral roll, you've just come out of the army, you know, lots and lots of reasons why there's nothing wrong with you, but then you can't go through electronically. We're going to need documents. So the one thing that nobody likes doing admin, I get it. But the one thing that clients could really help themselves and really help us to be able to help them is understand that if we ask a question for something, we're not trying to make life difficult. We're not trying to be nosy. We're not asking for the love of it. If you want our services, we have to go through this stage.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes I feel, and I have this internal debate with myself, Chris, whether we make a rod for our own back. And the reason I feel that way is there is another way of doing this. There is a way where you can onboard clients very quickly by just simply doing proof of ID and proof of address. That's much quicker because that's half the work and it's the least contentious amount of work because all you've got to prove is that you are who you say you are and you live where you say you live. Or if you can't do that, then you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I guess the other way of doing this is just register people quickly. They're happy as Larry. They think you're fantastic because within 24 hours you're done. Then it comes to the transaction where it's important to you that the money goes through a certain time frame because you're buying a house or selling a house or whatever the transaction is, or you're paying somebody's salary from your team, or overseas team, or you're buying a piece of equipment or whatever the situation is. Now it's time sensitive for the client.
Mm-hmm.
But the trouble is, I haven't done any source of funds compliance paperwork, and I haven't done any reason for trade. Now, right now, you love me because I've opened the account in 24 hours. Isn't Tony great? But all of a sudden, it's important to you to get a time frame, and now the delays kick in. Because now compliance will go, we just received £250,000. We need source of funds documents.
Yeah.
We need this, we need that. You could be in a meeting.
Yeah.
You could be at a networking event. You could be doing all kinds of things. You might not even see my email requirement or my missed telephone call for hours. You then get back to your office thinking, great, the money's gone through. And you get this email saying, we need this document, that document, this document, that document. And you go, but I've opened the account 4 months ago. Why didn't he bloody ask me for them there? And you'd be absolutely right.
Yeah.
So, rightly or wrongly, and I do have this debate in my head, whether we make a rod for our own back, but I've always taken the view, look, at the end of the day, most experienced clients will understand that instant everything, there's something hooky about instant anything.
Yeah.
And actually, people asking sensible questions should give you a warm and fuzzy feeling that you're dealing with a proper institution.
Yes.
This is bona fide. So, rightly or wrongly, we do as much as possible on day one, on onboarding. We don't just ask POI and POA. We ask for source of funds. We ask for reason for trade. Now, sometimes some of the documents won't be available because you haven't sold your house yet. So you can't give me the sale contract. But if you're buying a property, you should be able to give me a bank statement to show the money, or a mortgage statement to give me. So you still don't have to start from scratch. You can do as much as possible on day one. Then you exchange contracts. Now the contract's available. Now you send it over. When it's time, when you've got that window that you've got to work within, now everything is lined up. So the money comes in. I keep an eye on the markets. I know your time frame. I alert you to an opportunity in the market for a better exchange rate. I contact you. You say yes. I press the button, and it all goes through. Because compliance will go POI, POA, source of funds, reason for trade. Yep, release the funds. Bang, gone. And that's the way I like to do things.
So the examples you've just given are pretty much based around individuals. What about companies? Where is it a bit more onerous for companies, or is it pretty similar?
It's 80% similar.
Yeah.
The 20% difference is that, of course, a company is a separate legal body, a separate legal entity from the individuals in it. And the rule is anybody with a 25% or over shareholding has to be also identified, as well as any authorized users on the account.
Yeah.
So there's that extra step. But again, with most people, and there's a world of difference. You know, if it's a British company, dead easy, because 80% of the information is that company's house.
Mm.
But if it's a Spanish company, they don't have a company's house in Spain. So now, I'm afraid, Mr. Spanish company, I'm going to need your memorandum articles of association, your articles of association, shareholder register, because there isn't a central point that I can go to find this information out. So I need the client's cooperation for that. But we try and do as much electronically as possible. But most electronic compliance systems are only UK. Before Brexit, there was a lot of work done on EU-wide electronic systems. But, of course, that got slightly derailed with Brexit, and it's still very much up in the air, as far as I'm aware.
And one challenge that I came across with you where we were trying to make a payment is that things are shut down on the weekend. And, you know, living in a place like the UAE, you kind of expect that things work 7 days a week. Is this a global phenomenon, or is it specific to some exchange, ways of doing exchange, or some markets?
There's two answers to that very good question. The first answer is, globally, foreign exchange markets open on UK time-wise. Foreign exchange markets open on a Sunday evening in the Far East, and then go 24/7 until they close in North America on Friday evening. So there is no currency exchange open between Friday evening and Sunday evening anywhere. Now, what some companies do is they're big enough, and what they say is, we're open 7 days a week. And they are. Because what they do is you are able to trade with them between Friday evening and Sunday evening based on the closing exchange rate plus a very big margin to cover them in case of market movements between Friday and Sunday, or some political event happening, or some war or tsunami, or anything could happen in that period that materially changes the exchange rate, so as not to get caught out. So just be careful. Ask yourself, is it really important that I need a 7-day service? If it is available, but at a cost. If you can organize yourself to only trade between Sunday evening in the Far East and Friday evening in North America the following Friday, then you're working off live exchange rates. The margin will be a lot smaller.
And that's very interesting. I would not have had a clue about that. Absolutely no clue. So, we live in the age of the internet, obviously, and AI. So you just naturally, as a business owner, you expect that things just operate 24/7, especially if it's online, right? So, I mean, that is a big useful tip for, I think, everybody is try not to trade on the weekend unless you absolutely have to, because you will pay more and you probably won't be told about it.
It might not be too transparent.
Very interesting. So you've often mentioned the difference between simple transactions and more complex ones. How can businesses recognize, what's going to be simple and what's going to be quite complex in the end?
I think at the end of the day, it's very subjective.
Yeah.
What's complex for one person can be blindingly obvious to somebody else. I guess the way I would answer that question is put it back to the client. If the client feels 100% comfortable with that transaction and is not even curious to find out if there's a better alternative out there, it's their money. But where there's been delays, or there's hidden fees, or there's routing charges, and the world is unfortunately getting more complicated rather than more straightforward.
Yes.
So even a supposedly simple transaction, let's say you've got a British person with a holiday home in Portugal, Spain, Italy, wherever, in the European Union. So before Brexit, if you bought 5,000 euros to send to your account in Spain, you'd buy 5,000 euros, whether it's for a bank or an online app or an app or Cosmos, doesn't really matter. You buy 5,000 euros, you pay the sterling, and 5,000 euros would arrive. But that was because the UK was inside the EU single market, so it was seen as a domestic transfer. Now, because of Brexit, the UK is outside the single market. We'll leave the rights and wrongs of Brexit for other people to argue.
Oh, yes.
That's another story that's never going to end, as far as I'm concerned. They'll be arguing about this in hundreds of years' time. But going back to the transaction, if you use the majority of apps or platforms, they have overheads, they get their transactional business models, they get their business through pay-per-click. Generally speaking, most of those firms only belong to the global SWIFT payment network, which is the global biggie. But what it means is that when you send 10,000 euros to your account in Spain, you pay for 10,000 euros, whatever the margin is, whatever the fees are. But when the funds get to Spain, they clearly see it's come from SWIFT outside of the European Union single market. Therefore, it's an international transaction, and the bank will nab 25 euros off it, and you'll only receive 9,975. Now, the Cosmos solution, alternative solution is, first of all, we'll have that discovery call discussion about when you need to do this, your time frame, your cash flow, your attitude to risk. That doesn't guarantee a better exchange rate because none of us are clairvoyant, but chances are you won't just press the button because on a Tuesday morning because that's when you thought of it. There's going to be a little bit more rationale about it. You're going to be better informed about why you should do it now or why you should wait. And you've got people with lots of experience guiding you in that. Then we know there's a British client sending euros to Europe post-Brexit. So what we do is we've taken the trouble to not only belong to SWIFT, but to also belong to SEPA, which is the European Union's payment system, so that the funds arrive in Spain via SEPA, and therefore 10,000 euros arrives. Now, that's an extra cost to us. So why should we do that? Again, same old reason. If our business model is purely based on word of mouth referrals and repeat business, if we don't have the client's best interests at heart, our business model is dead in the water very quickly. So yes, it's an extra expense, but it's an extra solution for the client. The clients know that, because every time a client goes, "Oh, there's this new app, I'm going to try it," and then 9,975 come out, they quickly come back to Cosmos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least that's my experience.
Yeah, I had the experience a week or so ago when I tried it over the weekend, and all of a sudden my recipient got the funds a few days later, and massive amount had been taken out of what she'd received, unbeknownst to me, because I'd honestly done the best I could at my end. So
Yes.
who should bear these fees? The sender or the recipient? I know it's probably no right answer. Split it, but
No,
it's not always obvious how it's going to work.
No, but again, if you have access to a human-led brokerage, there is an option for that brokerage to share costs or to cover all costs. It's totally down to the broker to decide. And it's also important the payment rail chosen. So just giving an example of a British person sending money out, let's reverse that. British person selling a property in France, selling a property in Spain, selling a property in Italy, and repatriating the funds back to the UK. Before Brexit, again, same argument. UK was inside the EU single market. You'd go along to your bank in Spain. They will charge you a flat fee of 20, 30 euros to move the funds across. Now the UK is no longer in the single market. Now they charge up to 1.5% on the volume.
Goodness.
So you've sold your €300,000 apartment, and you could be looking at €4,500 fee just to transfer the euros. That's before the exchange rate. Unless you know somebody like me who will go, "Oh, British person selling in Europe, repatriating funds." Right, Chris, when you register, we've got 35 currency accounts in London, but we've also got a euro account in Belgium, which is inside the single market. So we are going to channel your funds. The payment rail is going to go not from Spain to the UK, but from Spain to Belgium. Therefore, the Spanish bank cannot charge you the 1.5%. They just can't by EU banking law. And we cover the cost of moving it from Belgium to the UK, so you're not put out. And then we will convert it back at the right time for you when you are happy with the exchange rate. Because another benefit of a human-led approach is that our systems are not fully automated. As you know from the apps and everything else, if you press the button today, it's done today.
Yeah.
There's no process as to, is a good time, bad time, should I wait? There's no discussion because you're not talking to anybody. It's just automatic. And with rates changing every 3 seconds and the world's so volatile, again, if you're doing a small amount, doesn't really make a lot of difference. The convenience factor is more important. But if it's chunky amounts and you have got a little bit of time, example, very recent example, a client, our British clients, I helped buy a property in Arizona 22 years ago. Kept in touch long before Cosmos. So I was working for brokerages, but I was their currency broker and I helped them buy the property. And we got on, and every time I moved jobs, they came with me. And every time they wanted to reline the swimming pool or buy a car or what have you, or move money out there, and every 3 months I'd send money out to cover the next 3 months' mortgage payments. And then ages caught up, and all of a sudden the flight to Arizona is long and painful. And so they decided to sell up. And after a while, they sold, they got a contract, and now they think, right, I best speak with Tony because I've no idea how I'm going to get the money back. So a question comes in. You've always helped us move pounds to dollars. Can you do it the other way around? Of course I can. No problem at all. Give me your realtor's name. Give me your closing agent's name. I'll deal with them directly because I'm going to need paperwork and what have you. There's no need for you to be the post office. I'll deal with them directly if you're happy for me to. They were delighted. So completed. The funds came in on a Thursday afternoon. They were flying back on Thursday. So they flew back to Heathrow. they WhatsApp me to say, we're back. So I phoned them and said, right, good news, the funds are in. Do you need the funds straight away? Well, we don't want to wait forever, but why? Why are you asking the question? Because this is what's happened this week. This is what's happening tomorrow, Friday, and into next week. I suspect the rates are going to improve for you by the beginning of next week. I can't guarantee it because I'm not clairvoyant, but I think there's a good balance of probabilities. But it's your money. I can do all of it now. I can do some of it now and some of it later. I can wait. No. We're not in any hurry. Next week is fine. That was Thursday afternoon. Monday afternoon, I rang them and said, really good news. This data's come out from the UK. It's abysmal. There's lots of online chatter about taxes going up in the budget and the pound's really under pressure. Now, we've got some more data coming out on Thursday, but who knows?
Yep.
But right now, so Thursday afternoon to Monday afternoon, on your amount of dollars, you've gained an extra £4,800. Do you want me to press the button? Do you want to do some of it? Do you want to wait until Thursday? £4,800 gain in little over 24 working hours.
Not bad. Not bad.
Okay, no problem. Press the button. The funds were with them Tuesday morning. And again, I talked them through that deposit guarantee scheme. So at no extra cost to the client, instead of sending one payment out to one bank account, we split it in two. So all the funds were safe for the clients.
I mean, there's two examples you just gave, the 4.5% loss in euros that you mentioned before, which couldn't make the difference between losing your house. That if that transaction goes through for buying that house in Spain that you mentioned for those clients, then they've lost the house. They've 4,500 euros short. That house is not theirs anymore. It's a big loss versus, a $4,500 gain just from dealing with someone who knows what they're talking about and hedging your bets, I guess. So you do hedge, you're a trader, effectively, FX trader. And we forget that these days that, this is what.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's quite interesting. And so I think we need to draw the episode to a conclusion soon. But I think that there's one big thing I've probably learned to summarize everything up is that it's all about the margin. And it's something that perhaps should be quite obvious to people, but it wasn't obvious to me, that it's all about the margin. And the margin is often not very transparent for end users.
At all. So have a look. Look at the who you're thinking of using. Look at their authorization. Make sure, above all else, your funds are going to be safe, come whatever. That's the number one rule. The second rule, then ask yourself the question: what's their business model?
Yeah,
is it transactional or is it relationship based? Because if it's transactional, you're guaranteed that it's purely about margin. It's purely about profit. They don't want a relationship with that client. They don't want a relationship with any client. It's purely transactional. So they're going to maximize every single transaction. If it's relationship based, you'd be a lunatic to try and maximize the margin on every transaction because you never build any relationship with anybody.
Yeah.
You never get any referrals, because I don't know who you know. Now, why on earth would you risk putting your good name in jeopardy by introducing me to your contacts that you built up over years, unless you are absolutely sure that that person is going to really look after your clients like they've looked, and look after your contacts in comparison to the way that you've also been looked after because you've had first-hand experience.
It's super interesting. I'm just thinking back to that example I gave you before a few weeks ago when I tried to make the currency transfer, and the rate they offered me, I was like, is not very good compared to what I'm finding elsewhere online. And I raised it with the relationship manager, and he's like, you haven't been transacting enough with us, so we can't offer you a better rate. And then I found a consumer-based rate, and he's like, no, that's retail, or it's consumer. It's not for companies. I was like, okay. So then I found another company one, which was better, and he gave me a better rate. Lo and behold, within 30 minutes, I got a better rate. And I was thinking, had I not asked that question, I mean, I would have lost quite a lot of money. I mean, I'm not talking about huge funds that I'm sending, but why in a relationship-driven game, then, would you give some clients a better rate than others based on how often they do it? I can guess the answer to that slightly. But then, fine, they'd looked elsewhere and say, oh, no, it's okay. We can give you another 2 cents or whatever. Doesn't make sense. As a business owner, it doesn't make sense.
No. And if you have to argue for it, okay, well done you for having the backbone to argue for it and getting there. And that's great for you. But it doesn't exactly leave you a warm and fuzzy feeling about that relationship. What relationship?
No, I was annoyed.
It's purely transactional.
Yep.
Of course.
Yep.
Of course. Whereas
I'd really use them properly as well. So, I mean, rip me off later. Don't do it on the first one because you ain't going to get more business from me.
Exactly. Exactly right. And again, I remember pre-Cosmos days, 35-year career, and I remember the monthly appraisal, my monthly appraisals. I'll never forget them because they were always pretty much, to be summarized very simply and quickly, Chris. It's, Tony, come in, sit down, yeah. Great, yeah, you smashed your KPIs, well done. But why do you have to spend so much time talking to clients on the telephone? What's the relevance of knowing their dog's name or what football team they follow or how their daughter is doing at university? Don't you realize that if you cut that conversation short, you could be making another sales call? And I'll go, have I or have I not hit all my KPIs?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but, right. What is my percentage of referrals-based business compared to my colleagues? That is free business for this firm. You've got no marketing costs.
Yeah, absolutely.
But why should clients give that to me if I'm, yes, what do you want? Yeah, 10,000 euros, no problem, Chris. Yeah, this is the rate. Yeah, shall I go ahead? Fine, buy, click, bang. You can get that anywhere. But if some clients only deal twice a year with me. But it's not beyond the realms of possibility that with a half-decent CRM system, Chris has just moved to Dubai, kids struggling to settle in at school. The phone comes in. It automatically opens up the CRM, your CRM record. I've got the notes in front of me.
Yeah.
This isn't rocket science. This is a basic CRM just connected to the telephone system.
Yeah.
We're not talking outlandish here. This is, I'm sure most of my competitors have a lot better systems than I have. But I know straight away, oh, how you doing, Chris? Yeah, great. Oh, a few months have gone by. How's life for you? It takes
So good, yeah.
seconds.
Oh, yeah.
It takes 20 seconds, but you'll remember that because nobody else is going to do it.
Yeah.
And the thing that absolutely does my head in is what passes for extraordinary service now was the absolute minimum you needed when I first started in order to keep your job. And we've gone from a world where the absolute minimum required just to make sure that there's a desk with your name on it
Yeah.
is now, wow, Tony remembered that I moved house. Of course I bloody remembered. I spoke to you 6 months ago. The record is on the CRM. But if you're dealing in an app or a call center,
I think that point it's general. That's an interesting tip in general for all businesses, really. It doesn't take a lot to stand out at the moment. This is what I tell a lot of people I talk to, actually. They're like, oh, I don't know if I should do any social media. I'm like, it doesn't take a lot to stand out. You don't have to spend all day, every day doing your social media or calling your clients, but you do need to be talking to your existing clients. It's just basic customer service, and a lot of people aren't doing it. So you do it, and you stand out a million miles above everybody else.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, considering, let's face it, my timing for starting Cosmos was interesting.
COVID.
COVID, lockdowns, world turned upside down. And I still get teased about it to this day, Chris, because, clients who I've known for a long time still tease me occasionally when it's in the news about, some new strain coming out or something. I'll get 1 or 2 phone calls from clients going, yeah, do you remember your famous prediction, Tony? I pretend not to know what they're talking about. Oh, what do you mean? I said, yeah, you said, and I quote, this country closed down. Are you insane? We didn't close down for 2 world wars. Why would we close down for the bloody flu? Do you remember that, Tony? Yes, I remember.
Well, it's a good thing to remember. They didn't have to open up the CRM to remember it either. It's a great thing.
Absolutely. But it's good that clients feel comfortable enough to tease me, to have some banter, to have a chat, and to realize that, yes, I've got 40 years experience, but I don't have all the answers. And, setting up a business in the middle of lockdown after a 35-year corporate career with a family with health issues is an interesting call.
Yeah.
But we're still here, and we still haven't spent a penny on pay-per-click. Word of mouth referrals.
Love it. Yeah, you're definitely. I'm going to come to you for my next bet. I think you're very good at predictions, so I'm going to go with that. Oh dear. Well, Tony, it's been so kind of you to join us today. What could potentially be a boring topic, and maybe it is for some, but it's good to speak to a true currency nerd who can then help us as really naive small business owners to make a difference. That is relationship driven, and I'm so glad we can have a good laugh about it as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And I always say, particularly to my business clients, I'm not the go-to person if you want to win new business. I'm not a marketing expert. I'm not a branding expert. I can give you my general feelings on it, but there's no more than that. But there is one thing that I can really help businesses with, and that's to keep their existing relationships. Because what I've seen time and again, particularly from my pre-Cosmos days in the corporate world, corporate banking, is, let's face it, with everybody online these days, it's never been easier to get overseas clients or overseas teams or overseas suppliers. And at first, everything's fantastic and everybody's happy. But if the boring, mundane, week-to-week, month-to-month systems like paying an invoice, like receiving funds, is a pain, at some point that client's going to question that relationship and go, I really like Chris, but he's in Dubai and getting money to him is a right old pain. And yeah, he's much better service and really nice guy, but can I really handle the hassle, or do I just go back to my next door neighbor or the person in the next town or in my country provider? And in a lot of instances, we can go, hold on, not so fast.
Yeah.
Here's an alternative payment route that will make life a lot easier, and that will help the relationship, help you keep those clients. And that's where a lot of our business comes from, is those kind of referrals.
I mean, that is a really good selling point, because I've had the experience myself of just, I'd want to make it as easy as possible for clients to pay me, but I don't want, it to cost me the world, basically, because
exactly right.
I want to lose those clients, but I'd also, I don't want to have to mark up my margin in order to deal with an overseas client. So it has to be the best for everybody.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, Tony, you're the man to come to for saving money, I think, and there's, you're protected, regulatory protected, so it's a safe way to go, and probably almost guaranteed to make money from your prediction. So I'm going to say that. You can't say that, but I can say that. You'll let everybody else. So yeah, thanks for joining us. Thank you for all your advice to SMEs out there and other professionals. So as we've all learned, there's so many ways to lose money, but there are also ways to gain with FX. And people like Tony Redondo can help you with that. So we've learned a lot about red flags and other things to look out for that can help. But ultimately, it all comes down to, it's all about the margin and it's all about relationships. So for anyone else who'd like to learn more about Tony's services or explore their own situation, you can find him at cosmocurrencyexchange.com or Tony Redondo on LinkedIn. He's also got his own podcast episodes as well, so you can find those on his website. For our audience, thank you for listening to Muhami Matters today. We're looking forward to welcoming you back for the next episode. If you did enjoy it, be sure to subscribe, share it with your network, For more insights and support, visit muhami.ae or connect with me at CJA Consulting. For now, I'm Chris Adams. Until next time, stay informed, stay empowered, and I wish you all the best in making lots of money. Thank you for joining us on Muhami Matters. If you found today's episode valuable, subscribe and connect with me to stay updated. Join me again soon as we continue to bring you credible insights, practical strategies, and trusted advice to empower your professional journey. I'm Chris Adams. Until next time, stay informed and stay empowered.